April 17, 1941. The mid-Atlantic 400 miles south of Iceland. It is 3:47 in the morning, and the ocean is almost completely black. There is no moon, no visible horizon. Only the slow, uneven rise and fall of cold Atlantic water, heavy with mist, and the distant creak of a convoy strung across miles of darkness. 42 merchant ships move in loose formation, their navigation lights dim to pinpricks, their holds packed with food, fuel, ammunition, and steel, the lifeblood of a nation fighting for survival. On the bridge of a British destroyer, a man stands absolutely still. Commander Donald MacIntyre, Royal Navy, rests both hands on the cold metal rail. He has been awake for nearly 2 days. His eyes burn. His jaw is set. Ahead of him, cutting through the water at extraordinary speed, a thin white line is racing directly toward his ship. It is a torpedo, 600 yards out. 40 knots, less than 30 seconds to impact. There is no alarm yet, no shouting, just the low wind, the faint hum of engines, and the quiet knowledge, shared by every officer on that bridge, that by every rule ever written, this destroyer should already be turning away. MacIntyre does not turn away. He leans slightly forward, studies the angle of the wake, and gives an order that no Royal Navy destroyer captain has ever issued under these circumstances. Hard to starboard, toward it. The helmsman hesitates for half a heartbeat. Then the wheel goes over. What follows in the next 83 minutes will become one of the most studied actions in the history of anti-submarine warfare. 2 German U-boats will be destroyed. Not a single merchant ship will be lost. And a doctrine that has governed naval combat for decades will quietly die in the dark water of the Atlantic. But to understand why Donald MacIntyre turned toward a torpedo, you must understand the war that made such a decision necessary, and the man who was never comfortable doing what he was told if the numbers did not agree. The Battle of the Atlantic was not fought with dramatic fleet engagements or great, decisive clashes. It was fought in isolation, exhaustion, and mathematics. From the first weeks of the Second World War, German submarines, Unterseeboot, shortened to U-boats, began tearing into Britain's maritime lifelines. Each merchant ship sunk meant fewer calories, fewer shells, fewer aircraft parts reaching the island. By early 1941, the situation was approaching crisis. German commanders called it the happy time. British convoy losses rose month after month. 500,000 tons of shipping were being sunk every 4 weeks. Escort forces were stretched thin, flying blind across thousands of miles of ocean, often with outdated ships, unreliable sonar, and crews who had not slept properly in days. The U-boat, by contrast, was a predator perfectly suited to this kind of war. Low in the water, almost invisible at night, faster on the surface than most escorts could manage, armed with torpedoes capable of breaking a ship's back in seconds, and, most dangerously, operated by commanders trained to exploit predictability. British doctrine told destroyers to turn away from incoming torpedoes, present their stern, and evade. It told them to stay close to the convoy, defend rather than hunt, and react rather than anticipate. It was safe, it was sensible, and it was failing. Donald MacIntyre understood this long before the night of April 17th. MacIntyre was not born into legend. He was born on December 27, 1904, in Plymouth, a naval town, steeped in tradition, routine, and inherited assumptions. His father was an engineer, his mother practical, observant, unsentimental. As a boy, he showed little interest in romantic notions of heroism. What interested him were discrepancies. At the age of 7, he was found in the garden timing snails with a pocket watch. He was testing whether they moved faster toward food or away from salt. He recorded the results carefully in a notebook, with 2 columns, expected outcome and actual outcome. When asked why, he gave an answer that would later define his entire career. Because what you think will happen and what does happen are usually different. The difference is where you win. It was not arrogance. It was curiosity sharpened into discipline. At the Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, MacIntyre was not popular. He did not rebel loudly. He did not complain. He simply refused to accept inefficiency as tradition. In 1918, senior cadets routinely sabotaged younger students before navigation exams, hiding instruments and calling it character building. The instructors tolerated it. MacIntyre studied it. He mapped where the instruments were hidden. He tracked patterns. He learned which lockers were loose, which floorboards lifted, which bricks concealed hollow spaces. When the sabotage escalated and an entire class's instruments disappeared on the eve of finals, MacIntyre did not report it. He broke into the navigation classroom before dawn, traced the instructor's master instruments onto paper, and taught his classmates how to improvise sextants and compasses using string, plumb lines, and protractors. The class passed with a 94% average. Instead of punishment, MacIntyre received a note in his file, Unconventional Solutions. Shows initiative. Recommend operational command. The Navy noticed him. Not because he followed rules, but because he understood when rules no longer applied. By the time war came, MacIntyre was ready, though the ships he was given often were not. In October 1939, he took command of HMS Wanderer, an elderly destroyer built during the First World War. She was slow, underarmed, and prone to mechanical failure. Her sonar worked intermittently. Her crew, mostly reservists, called her the Floating Coffin. His first convoy escort, HX-12, crossed the North Atlantic with 60 merchant ships and 8 escorts. German intelligence estimated losses of 15%. On the third day, U-53 struck, sinking 2 ships in 4 minutes. Standard procedure dictated that escorts chase the submarine's last known position. MacIntyre did not chase. He calculated where the submarine would want to go next, where it would surface to recharge batteries and reposition ahead of the convoy. He placed Wanderer there instead. 40 minutes later, U-53 surfaced directly in front of his bow, utterly unprepared to find a destroyer waiting. Gunfire followed. Depth charges damaged the submarine's pressure hull. It limped back to base and never returned to service. The convoy lost 2 ships instead of 9. MacIntyre wrote simply, "I did not chase. I thought about where he would go next and arrived first." It was not luck. It was method. By March 1941, MacIntyre was given command of HMS Walker and appointed senior officer of the 5th Escort Group. The stakes were higher now. The convoy routes ran through areas beyond air cover. The Black Pit, where U-boats hunted in coordinated packs. On April 14th, convoy OB-293 departed Liverpool. 42 merchant ships, 5 escorts. Intelligence warned of concentrated U-boat activity ahead. MacIntyre altered course slightly, adding hours to the journey but skirting the densest patrol grids. Survival odds improved from 60% to 75%. Still, the Wolfpack found them. By the night of April 16th, high-frequency direction finding detected multiple submarine transmissions. At least 5 U-boats were coordinating on the convoy's flanks. Doctrine said hold position, defend, wait. MacIntyre ordered his ships forward. At 2:30 a.m., sonar contact was made. At 600 yards, the U-boat fired, and at 3:47 a.m., the torpedo came. A destroyer displacing over 1,000 tons cannot turn a torpedo at close range. The mathematics are unforgiving. Turning away exposes the broadside. Turning toward shortens the target profile. MacIntyre understood this. He turned in. The torpedo passed 15 feet down Walker's starboard side. close enough to feel the pressure wave lift the hull. MacIntyre did not celebrate. He counted. German torpedoes took approximately 6 minutes to reload. That window, no more, was his opportunity. The submarine dove deep and went silent. Sonar contact was lost. Instead of searching blindly, MacIntyre returned to the torpedo's point of origin and dropped a single depth charge, not to destroy, but to provoke movement. 30 seconds later, sonar regained contact. The U-boat had shifted east, running faster than expected. The submarine turned toward the convoy. Dropping charges there risked damaging merchant ships. So MacIntyre did not attack the submarine. He attacked its options. Working with another escort, he herded the U-boat, forcing it to maneuver. When it dove below standard depth, charge range, he used 2 experimental charges set deeper than doctrine allowed. They detonated at 450 feet. Oil and debris surfaced. 1 U-boat was gone. The night was not over. 30 minutes later, another contact appeared. Faster, more aggressive. Running on the surface. This submarine had a firing solution on 6 merchant ships. MacIntyre calculated intercept times. Direct pursuit would arrive 1 minute too late. So he changed the geometry. He placed his ship between the U-boat and its targets. The submarine dove beneath Walker, using the destroyer as a shield. MacIntyre waited. Then he reversed engines, an almost unthinkable maneuver in combat. Closing the distance instead of widening it, he dropped depth charges so close that the ship's stern lifted clear of the water. The submarine was forced to the surface. Gunfire erupted. In seconds, the conning tower was hit. The pressure hull ruptured. The U-boat slid backward into the sea. 18 men surfaced in the freezing water. MacIntyre ordered rescue until sonar detected another contact closing fast. He delegated the survivors to another ship and turned toward the new threat. By dawn, the Wolfpack had dispersed. All 42 merchant ships reached port. 2 U-boats had been destroyed in just over an hour. This night was not an anomaly. It was proof. Within weeks, MacIntyre's methods were being studied. Turning into torpedoes, using depth charges to control movement rather than seek immediate destruction. Treating doctrine as guidance, not law. Over the next 4 years, MacIntyre would personally sink 8 U-boats, more than any other Allied surface commander in the Atlantic. 14 more would be damaged under his command. He would escort 200 convoys without losing a single ship directly under his protection. But numbers alone do not explain his impact. What mattered was fear and who felt it. U-boat commanders were trained to expect predictability. Escorts that turned away. Escorts that defended rather than hunted. MacIntyre broke that pattern. German intelligence flagged him as a priority threat. Submarines were assigned specifically to hunt his ships. He welcomed it. Good, he reportedly said. It makes them predictable. The psychological toll was immense. Men slept in snatches. Sonar operators listened for hours to nothing but water and imagination. Depth charge crews handled explosives, knowing a miscalculation could destroy their own ship. MacIntyre never pretended the war was clean. He wrote privately of the men left in the water. The ones he could not save, he called war. Arithmetic with ghosts. Decisions measured in seconds and lives. After the war, he declined further sea command. He spent his remaining naval career writing manuals, teaching tactics, and reminding young officers that doctrine was a record of past solutions, not a guarantee of future survival. He died in 1981, quietly, at home. Most people do not know his name. But every modern anti-submarine commander understands his lesson. The greatest danger is not the weapon racing toward you. It is the comfort of doing what you have always done. Donald MacIntyre turned toward the Torpedo. not because he was fearless, but because he had done the mathematics and understood that predictability, in war, is a slow and certain death. If you loved this story and want more history that shocks, inspires, and motivates, subscribe to Rising Warfare, like this video, and explore the incredible tales we uncover. More amazing content is coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss it!